Well, welcome back to the homestead. Today I'm out here and I'm going to be working on running some of my water lines in. So I came out the other day and I got started on the project. Unfortunately, I forgot some of my camera equipment and I didn't get any footage that day. But what I've done is I've gone ahead and put in some stub outs for my pipes and just some of the prep work for actually getting the water lines run to hopefully make today go a little bit faster. So one of the questions I get asked a lot about my water lines is just what product am I going to use to run water? And around here I've really got three choices. I've got PVC, copper, and PEX. Now PVC used to be kind of the standard. That's what everybody's houses were done with, and it's kind of fallen away from that. In fact, I'm not really sure that any new houses are ever plumbed with PVC anymore, although it is readily available in the supply stores for repairs and stuff. So PVC is cheap, it's easy to use, you don't have to have any special equipment to do it, but it also breaks really easy. If you get a frozen line, it's guaranteed you're going to have a cracked pipe and you're going to have to do some repair work. So PVC is not really the choice that I want. The next choice would be copper, which is kind of I guess the high quality industry standard. If your higher end houses are plumbed, they would have typically been done with copper, and a lot of people really recommend it. And it does have some good qualities to it, but it does have some drawbacks too. One is it's a lot more expensive than PEX or PVC to put in. Two, it's a little more difficult to install because you have to actually solder the joints together. It's not really hard. Pretty much any DIYer can do it with a little practice, but it does take a little more time and a little more skill, and you're more likely to have a joint that has a pinhole in it when you're finished that you'll have to come back and repair when you do your pressure test. But it is a good quality product. My concern with it is I'm going to be using a well out here, and I don't really know what the pH balance of my water is going to be when the well's put in. And some of the more acidic well waters actually will corrode the copper piping over time, and I don't want that in my drinking water. So my decision was to finally go with the PEX piping, and like everything else, it has pros and cons too. It's really cheap, it's easy to install, it's readily available, but it's not UV balanced. So your copper lines you could run across the top of the ground, it could stay out there for a year, and then you could take it inside and install it and it would be fine. The PEX pipe is only rated for 30 days of exposure to UV rays. So if it's not going to be in a dark enclosed area, or like in a wall cavity or in a crawl space under the house where light can't get, or up in the attic, then it has to be wrapped. Or as the UV hits it, it'll degrade the pipe and then you'll wind up with a leak. So that's probably one of the biggest drawbacks to the PEX. And unfortunately for me, my project is kind of slow. So it's going to be a while once I get my water lines ran in before they're actually enclosed in sheetrock or crawl spaces or whatever. So I'm going to have to actually encase my pipes to keep the light off of them so that they don't degrade due to the slowness of my project. Most people wouldn't have to do that because the house build is so fast that they're not exposed for more than 30 days. But doing it yourself and paying for it as you go, things are a little slower. So in this case, it's going to cost me a little bit extra time and work to put the PEX in because I have to take extra precaution. But it's not a big deal, and it's certainly nothing we can't overcome. But one of the virtues of PEX pipe is if it freezes, the PEX pipe just expands and it typically will not bust. So once your ice thaws out, the pipe just kind of shrinks back down to its normal size, and it's no worse for the wear. So that's a really good virtue of the PEX. Plus, like I said, it's readily available, and it's really pretty cheap to put in. But another thing is, if you run Pex B, which is the type I'm going to run, you can use a manifold system on the house, and that's what I'm going to be doing. So I bought a Veiga Manbloc 24 port manifold, and I'm going to run my one water line into the house to this manifold, and then every faucet from there on out will have a dedicated line from the manifold to the fixture, so there won't be any fittings between the two, and that reduces the points of failure where you could have a crimp ring that fails or a fitting that fails. You really reduce the number of connections in your system. So anyway, let me take you inside and show you the rough end work that I've gotten started, the stub outs and the laundry box and that kind of thing, and the manifold, and then we'll get started pulling some pipe in and see if we can't make some headway on these water lines today. Alright, so the other day when I didn't have my camera out here, one of the things I did was I put in these boxes for the washing machine and the refrigerator. They're made by Oxbox. This particular one's for the laundry room, so it's two separate boxes. I've got a hot and cold valve in here. They're anti-hammer valves, so when your washing machine cuts off using a solenoid, sometimes that causes a water hammer effect in your plumbing, and these valves help cut that out so you don't get the pipe rattle. The valves actually come with the boxes, and they're PEX ready valves, so my PEX lines will come from up top. They'll crimp directly onto these two valves and should be ready to go. This box over here is going to be for the drain side of the washing machine, and the house drain will come up to the bottom of that. So that'll take care of the requirements for my laundry room. I've got another one of these set up in the kitchen for the ice maker. It's just a single box with a single valve, and that should take care of the refrigerator. So let's go look at some of the stub outs that I put in for the sinks and the toilets. All right, so in addition to the ice maker box and the laundry box, everywhere that we have a sink or a toilet hookup, we've gone ahead and we put in these little fixtures here, and it just gives you a way to attach it to a stud or a cross member, and you run your pipe in the top. It forms it to a 90 so it won't kink, and gives it a way to securely exit the wall to hook up to your supply lines. So we've got these in place, and then when we run our PEX in, we'll let it hang out long, we'll cap it off. Then when I come in and I put the cabinets in, we'll let that run through the cabinet, and then we'll put the valve on there to connect it to the supply line. So like I said, these are in place everywhere we need them, with the exception of the half bath downstairs where I'm putting a corner sink in, and I'm going to wait to run those lines until I actually have the sink in hand. That way I can position the pipes to hide them the best. So we've got these in, and I think the next thing I want to show you is the manifold. So let's go take a look at that. All right, so this is the control center for my plumbing, and it's the Veiga Manbloc I was telling you about. So you've got 9 hot water supply lines with shutoff valves, and then you've got 14 cold water supply lines with shutoff valves. Up top you've got a 3/4 inlet for cold water and a 3/4 for hot water, and then down at the bottom you've got a 3/4 supply line to go to your hot water heater. So the aspect I'm really going to like about this is my exterior water faucets. Typically what you would do is you would take a spigot to put on the outside, and you would run it through an exterior wall of the house which is heated, and you would put a no freeze valve which has like a 6 or 8 inch line on it. So when you shut the water off out here, there's a plunger that actually shuts it off back here, and then the water in this section of pipe drips out so it won't freeze. And then everything past that is actually in the heated envelope of the house. The way my exterior faucets are going to be is the lines are going to go out under the house, out to the exterior edges of the porch. So they won't be running through a heated wall, and those no freeze spigots won't do me any good. So without this system, what I would have to do is insulate all of that pipe and then wrap my faucets, and then if we had a really hard freeze, I'd probably have to actually go out and drip the faucets so that they wouldn't freeze. But this system will alleviate that. So what I'll be able to do is, before we get the first freeze weather, I can come up here and I can shut off this one line that's going to go out to the 4 exterior faucets. I'll shut it off here, I'll go outside, I'll open the taps, drain the water out of the lines and close them back, and I'm winterized. There's nothing in there to freeze at that point. Typically your outside faucets don't get used much over the winter, so they'll just stay shut off. And then when spring comes around, I'll turn this valve back on and the outside faucets are working again. So I think that's going to be a really nice feature of this. Plus each one of these trunk lines runs directly to a faucet, so there's no fixtures, no elbows, 90s, or T's between here and the actual water fixture, with the exception of my outside water spigots. I'll have 2 T's in it for those. But all the other ones will be a direct home run. So your water line will hook up here, and then whenever the Pex stops, that's where your fixture is going to be. There'll be no elbows or 90s or T's or anything like that in these lines, or home run lines. So anyway, I've already got the manifold system installed here. It's recessed into a 2x6 wall, so I can actually run these pipes through the wall. All the pipes on this side are going to exit horizontally through the wall this way into a crawl space in the attic. And then all the pipes on this side are going to come out and turn and go up and exit into the attic crawl space. So almost all those holes are pre-drilled. I've got a couple more I need to go ahead and do. So let's go ahead and finish drilling those holes, and then we can start running some of the pipe. Well, like I mentioned earlier, I framed this wall up out of 2x6 for the express purpose of being able to recess the Manbloc system into the wall, so I can put an access door over the front of it. And then also I can run the water lines through the studs up into the attic and hide them behind the sheetrock here. So should make a nice clean installation once we're done. All right, so for any of you that haven't ever pulled with Pex before, it comes in 3 different colors, as well as Pex A, B, and C types. It comes in a red, white, and blue color. There is a difference in the Pex A, B, and C, but there is no difference in the red, white, and blue. So I've got Pex B, and I chose to get the red and blue. And I'm going to run my hot water with the red, and I'm going to run cold water with the blue. But some people choose to just get white and run both hot and cold in white, so the whole house is plumbed in one color, and then you can just mark the end of it with a Sharpie or whatever so that you know which end to hook up to the hot and cold on the faucet. But in my case, I did go ahead and get the red and the blue because the amounts I needed, it just worked out. So before I actually start running this, I don't want to push the open end of this tube through these holes that I've drilled and wind up getting trash inside my water line. So I bought some of these end caps, and we're just going to put a plug in the end of this pipe to keep all the trash out of it, and then we'll run it. When I get all the slack over to the manifold, I'll just pull this out and crimp it to the manifold, and I can reuse this cap. So let's go ahead and see if we can get the first line pulled in here. Okay, so now that we have our first water line ran all the way from the kitchen sink up through the floor, through the crawl space, through this water supply wall to the manifold, we need to go ahead and crimp it onto the actual fitting. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the plug out that we put in there to keep trash out. We'll save that to reuse. And you want to check the end of your your pipe here to make sure that the cut is 90 degrees. And this particular cut is not from the factory. So we're going to go ahead and just clean that cut up a little bit, square it up so that it'll fit up onto the fitting real good. Alright, now what we'll do is we'll take the fitting off of the Manbloc. You want to make sure that you put your screw ring on first, then put your crimp ring on the pipe, and then put your fitting into the end of it. You'll snug that fitting up real tight in there, pull that down, and it's ready to crimp. So this is the crimp tool. You've got different dies for each size of pipe, and this is the 1/2 inch die. So all you have to do is just slide this over the pipe on the crimp ring. And just crimp it down. So once it's crimped on there, you need to make sure that that's a good crimp connection. And to do that, use a go, no-go gauge. So we're looking for the 1/2 inch, and we got a problem, Houston. All right, sorry about that delay there. This is the first time I've used this particular tool. I just bought it for this project, and I've never used this go, no-go gauge before. And when I pulled it out, I pulled up the 1/2 inch setting, and I should be able to just slide it over this crimp ring. And it shouldn't bottom all the way out, but it should go about halfway into the opening there. And it doesn't even come close. So I was a little bit worried that maybe I had done something wrong here. But what it looks like is when they printed, I don't know if you can see it or not, if it'll focus on it. But it looks like when they printed the tool, they put 3/8 on the 1/2 and 1/2 on the 3/8. So my tool is marked wrong, and whenever I tried the 1/2 inch setting, it didn't fit, but it should be this 3/8 setting. It's just marked wrong on the tool. So whenever I take the 3/8 setting and I go to put it on there, it slides halfway up into the notch, but it doesn't bottom all the way out. So I know that it's crimped properly. So now I can go ahead and pull the line back, put that end up into the Manbloc, and go ahead and screw the retainer ring onto it. Alright, so this connection is done on this side. I do need to come back with the tool and tighten that up, but I'll do that at the end. But now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll start from this end, working all the slack back towards the kitchen fixture, and tacking this down every couple feet or so. So let's go ahead and start getting this strapped down, and then we can work on the coal run. All right, well, that's going to do it for today. It's pretty hot up here, and the next 10 runs I have to run through the attic, and it's even hotter up there. So we're going to wait and do that another day. But we did get the first 10 runs done, so we're halfway through, and I'm pretty happy with it, the way it's working. The only thing I wish is when you unroll the PEX, it comes in a coil. When you unroll it, it has a little bit of shape memory, so you can't really get it to lay flat in a perfectly straight line when you're running long runs. But it's not too bad, and it doesn't affect the performance of the system. But I do wish I could install it just a little bit neater than what it is. But at any rate, it's coming along pretty good. We're halfway done, and hopefully the next full day I get out here, we'll be able to finish up the water supply lines and move around to working on some of the drains. So till then, y'all keep checking back.